What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the
Hello.
Next Rank Weekly. It's you boys,
Hello.
Smellsworth, Johnny Boy, and Jack here for the nextrank.com. And this week's discussion is, why do you even want to get better? Now, when this topic came up,
Yes.
Jack, you kind of perked up on talking about this topic. Why do you think this is
Yeah.
an
So
important
when
topic
I've
to discuss?
coached people in the past, it's always one of the first things I kind of try to establish with people, with players. And the reason for that is because if you don't have a kind of baseline, if you don't have like a set thing that you're working towards, you don't really know the kind of steps you have to take to get to the path you actually want to be, if that makes sense, right? You don't know exactly where you're going. So the reason I want to talk about this so much is that a lot of players, they just simply they play the game and they have a goal in mind. Let's say they want to, they want to go pro, right? If you want to go pro, that means your goals and the things you're going to be working on are very, very different, in my opinion, to the goals that you'll be working on if you just want to reach GC, right? And those two things are very, very different. So I believe players need to kind of set their goals, set their aims early on to actually understand what they need to work towards, if that makes sense.
What kind? I was going to ask what kind
Yeah,
of,
it does.
you've done quite a lot of coaching in the past. What kind of responses do you usually get from people when you do ask that question? I mean, obviously there's going to be a range, but
Yeah.
yeah, what are the main ones that people are shooting for?
It's usually a few. Usually there's a lot of people who want to go pro, obviously. And I obviously try and recommend them to break that down a little bit to reach for certain smaller things first. Some people will just simply want to get to a certain rank. I think champ is a big one, grand champ's a big one. SSL, it is fairly common, but not incredibly common like you think. And a lot of them is just simply I want to learn X thing. I want to learn a set number of mechanics I can show off to my friend.
Yeah,
That's usually a big one. And all of those things are very, very different. If you're trying to reach a certain rank, you should be doing a little bit of like less risky things to get to that rank, because you can improve and rank up without learning almost all the mechanics, if that makes sense. You can learn the smarts,
Mhm.
Whereas if you're trying to go pro or reaching a massive rank like SSL, you're going to really want to focus on the mechanics, in my opinion. And that's where the two differ a little bit there.
but that's fine as well. Of course, people just want to get better at certain mechanics to impress
Absolutely.
a friend. Like that's a totally valid thing. It's very relatable to real life. I'm sure that when I remember when I was like playing football or soccer for those of you overseas, yeah,
Oh,
just
thank
in
you. I
case
was
you
so
don't get confused.
confused. I was
Wow,
like,
they're
wow.
playing.
Johnny went to North America and
Yeah,
started
that's
playing in the
yeah,
NFL. That's
yeah. I
incredible.
was the halfback or whatever that position is. But yeah, the thing that I used to
Mm.
do, I used to just like I'd just go outside the in my back garden and just like practice the same thing over and over again. Just so next time we're doing it at football training, I'm just like really good at it, and then everybody would be like, "Wow, that's cool."
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't free kicks, for example, people love practicing free kicks in football, even though the amount of free kicks you get in an actual game, if you do even play competitively, are so few. And then you've got 11 people on the pitch and they're all arguing over who gets to take it because they want to be the guy who scores the cool goal. It's super relatable. That happens a ton in Rocket League, but that's to be expected. And it's not a bad thing. You can even use that as like motivation, like
Mhm.
picking things that you enjoy improving at to try and become a better player, but in a fun way, I guess. Instead of like you
Absolutely.
said, Jack, if you're shooting for a rank specifically, maybe that'll be more of a grind, more of a disciplined kind of thing, where you're trying not to do things that aren't going to
Yeah.
get you that rank quickly. If you're trying to get rewards for the end of the
Mhm.
season, so it's you can use it for like motivation, but also like changes your objectives along the way.
It
Yeah, I
does.
was gonna say, I think it's also like it can inform people. Am I even doing the right thing?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like, if like honestly, if you've ever talked to somebody like a therapist or like a counselor of any sort of type, like a lot of times they'll just ask you something that's really obvious, like, why do you even want
Yeah.
X, Y, Z? And you'd be like, oh, actually, I've never really thought about it. And then suddenly you're like, oh yeah, it's actually not that big of a deal. Or like, maybe I'm like holding myself to a standard that's not even important for hitting
Yeah,
my goal.
absolutely.
And I'm trying stupid things. Or on the flip side, if you're trying to become pro, I have to imagine the majority of the people that are trying to become pro are not trying hard enough. They actually don't understand what it would take to get to like a pro level. I imagine a lot of people, like, if you were to ask them a follow-up question like, and do you think that, like, in your head of what a pro Rocket League player does to get to the top, that you were doing all of those
Yeah.
things?
Yeah.
They would probably almost have to say
Yeah.
no, almost certainly 90% of the time. So it's a good forcing function for you to like align your expectations, what you're actually executing on, with where you want to go.
And you made a good point about kind of answering an easy question to yourself, and that's one of the big reasons I want to talk about this so much, is because we don't answer the easy questions to ourselves because we already think they're easy, that we already have the answer, right? When you really just ask yourself, why do I want to get better? You all of a sudden have something to reach for. You have set things that you're gonna go for. And like we talked about previously, if you're just trying to hit a rank that's close to you, like Johnny said, it's usually about trying to make yourself not do certain things, right? Trying to minimize risks, mitigate mistakes in that regard. Like, you're just trying to not make those certain things happen. Whereas if you're trying to reach a rank or a level that is quite far out of reach for now, you need to allow yourself, in my opinion, to be more fluid with your learning and to learn a wide, a bigger plethora of things, if that makes sense. I think, those are the two things, really.
Yeah. On that note, it makes sense to me that if you're like, okay, XYZ rank is what I'm going for, I'm going for a GC3. I think the first question then would be like, do you have the skills to be a GC3?
Yes.
If you do, okay, cool. Actually, we don't have to focus on mechanics at all. In what way is like, are your games going wrong decision making wise, or why are games not falling your way if you do actually have the mechanics and the skills to be at that level? And actually, probably, well, depends on who you are, obviously, but I think a lot of people have the mechanics to be at a high, or their mechanics are good enough for them to be at a higher level most of the time. It's probably more along the lines comes down to like decision making, especially if you're solo queuing, because when you're solo queuing, it's just like you're more error prone,
more tilt prone
as a team, more tilt prone, error prone, whatever, as a team. So it can really, it could really change your mindset about like, okay, what's important here? Actually, like, free play training, not that important for me right now. What's more important is me being probably defensive and more cautious overall. Probably like, because
you're right with that most of the time.
Likely,
you're right with that most of the time.
Mostly,
some players already know that, and they start off so defensive though that they think that they're doing the right thing and they need to go the other way. So most people, like Matt said,
we spoke
more
about
defensive.
like we spoke about in one of the, I don't know which one it was, but it was
one
one
of the previous episodes we did.
Previous episodes recently. It's when you tell a player to become more defensive, they go, okay, where is the most defensive position I could be? It's just in my net, and they're just there all the time. And it's like, that's not defensive. That's stupid, right? So it's like, and those are two very different play styles, So, but yeah, like Matt said, if you want to just get that one rank higher, if you're diamond and your goal is to reach champ, it's usually going to be, if you can play a little bit more defensive, a little bit more safe, you will get there if you have the mechanical skill set that you need for champ, which a lot of players will. A lot of players have that like mechanical skill set of a rank higher, but it's just they're not getting there because they're not playing at that smart level. You know what I mean? They're making too many mistakes for that rank. So absolutely.
Let's focus in on that example, actually. I think this is a good way to like wrap up this episode, would be to say, okay, if you're trying to go 1 to 2 ranks higher, or 1 rank higher, what would we suggest would be a good order of operations for figuring that out? And then we could talk about like, okay, you're going for a much bigger, what would be the next steps that you'd recommend
very, very
somebody would
simple,
take?
and I could be off the mark, but you guys can choose to believe me. I think I'm right with this. I've seen it happen. I believe it's simple, right? If you just want to get 1 to 2 ranks higher, you focus on the fundamentals. How hard can I hit the ball? How hard can I clear the ball? When am I keeping it close and when am I hitting the ball away? And boost management. That's the massive one, in my opinion. If you want to get, 1 rank higher or half a rank higher, even 2, if you focus on small pads, especially in those medium ranks, you're going to get that extra rank. I promise. It always happens. If you're trying to reach, 2 to 3 to 4 ranks higher, you have to be more fluid. You're working on the mechanical shots, in my opinion. And you don't forget the basics, you don't forget the fundamentals, but you are having to reach that higher level of, shooting. Can you shoot from here? Usually you can't with just fundamentals. You're going to have to probably pull an air dribble out or a flip reset. That, in my opinion, that is kind of what I'd be looking for.
And
Yeah.
is that
The
something?
only thing I would add. Oh, sorry.
I
Go
was
ahead,
just going to
Johnny.
ask about that. Is that something that you think is important? This is actually for both of you guys. Do you think it's important to establish that early on, or does it really matter? Because I think having that short-term goal can sometimes be good to to just have that motivation early on and see this can work. I've definitely improved here. I've gone from diamond to champ, got that new
That's
season
completely
reward,
fine.
and then in the future you can adapt your strategy, like Jack's saying. Because when you get to that plateau and you realize, okay, now the fundamentals aren't going to cut it for like
Yeah.
that next rank I'm going to get to. But yeah, I want to ask your guys' opinions of that. Like, is it important to just be honest with yourself early on and say, am I going to be satisfied with champ? Am I going to be satisfied with this one rank up, or do I need to actually plan ahead and kind of tip the scales more towards that fluidity early?
So I think Rocket League it's a game, right? But it's no different to what you do in real life. In real life, your goals would change as you grow up, as you get more used to things. You might have a higher goal at one time and then get used to it, and you don't actually want to reach that goal anymore. It's now down here. It's the same with Rocket League. If you want to hit, I wanted to hit champ, right? And then once I got champ, I wanted to get that shiny purple rank with wings, which was GC, and I was like, I want GC. When I got GC, I was like, okay, I want to play pros. That was my next one. I then played, Met Sonoris in a 1v1 and lost. And I was like, okay, I want to get top 100. I want to beat a pro and get top 100. I got top 100 on Xbox. Then I want to do it in the world. Your goals can change. And that is, in my opinion, the best. Oh, my camera is fuzzy, but that's okay. They can change. And I don't know why it's doing that. But yeah, it's completely fine that they can change as time goes on. It's normal.
And yeah, Matt, you as well.
Yeah.
You had goals early on. I know some people listening will probably know this, but you approached me to coach you like years ago now.
That's how we
And
met.
then
Yeah.
I remember one of the questions you asked us, do I think, because you were gold at the time, and you asked, do you genuinely think it would be possible for someone at your rank to go pro? And I said yes. I thought the longevity of the game was going to be enough that the early days like advantage that people had up over you wouldn't matter. But I did also clarify, even back then, I was like, but it's a massive time investment. Like you said, people need to be honest with themselves. If you want to go pro, are you putting that time aside? Because I know you probably very early on decided now it's not worth it,
No.
to even attempt it, and your goals would have changed.
Yeah, I think you could probably just like as a person look back historically and see how have I approached things like this in the past.
Yeah.
And realize that it's probably going to be similar to whatever that was. And then in a way, what also I was going to say is that like there's a half-life on your motivation and enjoyment of this game. So you're never going to be more motivated than you are at the beginning of like starting to really get into something. So
Definitely.
that's the time for you to like take it seriously if that's what you want to do, or try it out. And by the way, you can make that decision for 2 weeks and be like, oh, actually this sucks, I'd rather just play for fun. No problem.
Yeah.
It's okay. So to Jack's point, your goals can change, but you're going to be way more motivated in the beginning, in the middle of your journey than you are at the end. There's a reason why pros that have been in the scene for a while stop learning mechanics, eventually fizzle out because their motivation for the game and their burnout sets in. And it's a very, very, and it's not just pros in Rocket League, it's pros in everything. It's a very difficult thing to like overcome. So that is the thing I would add. And then earlier I was going to add something to Jack's list, and that was what you brought up as well, is like hours. And the majority of people that like, if they want to get better, or like say like you constantly are missing the ball, not because like say you used to hit the ball better than you do now and you're like missing the ball, there's a pretty clear answer there, which is like your hours are too low probably, because I think that those types of mechanical mistakes,
because you can regress,
come from hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can regress.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's always the conversation where the pro goes in with a low last 2 weeks hours into like a major or something and performs poorly.
Like,
it's not the only reason.
I've had one of those, and it's not pretty. Winter major,
it's not fun.
21,
not fun to be the subject of that one.
It's not pretty,
Yeah. There's a reason why we used to call Alpha FIFA 54 as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We also need to like distinguish, and we will, that's really what one of our goals is with this course, is to distinguish like hours, as really different types of hours. Like you can have very inefficient hours, and just because you're getting your hours up doesn't mean that you're going to have the same improvement as somebody with lower hours, but much more efficient and deliberate practice during those hours, focused improvement. And for like all of us who don't have, like, especially as you get older, Jack, you'll start to realize this. I know you already do, that you just, like, there's less and less time, like, in your day. You need to really be
Yeah.
efficient with your time if you want to get the most out of it. So yeah, for me, I know I don't play Rocket League to try and get clips to show to anybody anymore. If anything, I try and get bad clips because I think it's funny. Which we've got plenty tricks to teach in that regard. I know Matt likes to try and get as many demos and bumps as possible, just to really
Mhm.
engage in this psychological warfare aspect of the game. We've kind of we've attached ourselves onto these aspects of the game that we do enjoy. But I realized, like, a long time ago, that for me, I wanted to, like, what was Rocket League for me is playing with friends. I want to be a good
Yeah.
teammate. I want to be people. I want to be somebody people enjoy playing with. And whenever I play with some of my friends, and they're just going for clips over and over again, I don't enjoy playing with them because that's not, like, maybe they're miles better than me a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to play with them because they're just, like, taking the ball solo all the time. I'd rather, I really tried to become, like, more of a team player, just because for me that was what really helped me enjoy the game. So it's about identifying goals, like goes way back to the beginning. Why do you actually want to improve? Is it to get those clips? That's fine. For me, it was to try and be a better, a more enjoyable person to play with. And yeah, when that can change from teammate to teammate. Some players, what they play with, want to be, tiki taka passing. Others, like, when I play with Matt, it just becomes an absolute demolition derby. We're just trying to demo as many people as possible because it's fun, and you can really, I think, find a lot of enjoyment in that while still being competitive, which is I think the root of all this. So we can all, if there's one thing in common to all these, it is the competitive aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agreed with all the points that
All right, perfect. I think that wraps it up for this one. Thanks, boys.